one weekend. That's all I asked for. One weekend before Trump does some shit. Okay? That's what I want. That's what I want. But no. Here we are. Here we are with Venezuela. So let's start talking about this bullshit because only Lord knows what's going to be in store for us this coming week. Okay, before I start, I just want to say that this video is going to be about 3 minutes. And therefore, if you want to listen to the full video, which will include how this connects to the Canadian economy, just make sure that you sign up at badandbitchy.com. It's free. There are no paywalls, so you can actually watch it, but make sure you subscribe. Anyway, let's start. So, first of all, I want to make it clear that there are questions that I have. I have a lot of questions, and I'm sure you have a lot of questions too. So first off, let's see how this all went down.
Here's a timeline of events in the capture of Nicolas Maduro, 10:46 p.m. Eastern Time, Friday, January 2nd. President Trump gives the final authorization. Over 150 U.S. aircraft launch from bases across the Western Hemisphere as Operation Absolute Resolve begins. 1:01 a.m. ET, Saturday, January 3rd, Delta Force helicopters arrive over Maduro's compound in Caracas after U.S. forces suppress Venezuelan air defenses and cut power to parts of the city. The assault team rapidly descends onto the target. Operators storm the heavily fortified residence. Maduro attempts to reach a steel-reinforced safe room but is captured before he can close the door. The couple surrenders to U.S. forces. Delta Force completes the ground assault in under 30 minutes, with extraction helicopters landing swiftly to evacuate the team. At 3:29 a.m. Eastern Time, the extraction is complete. U.S. forces are over the water with Maduro in custody, and he is transferred to the USS Iwo Jima. At 4:21 a.m. Eastern Time, Trump announces the capture on Truth Social, declaring that Maduro and his wife have been captured and flown out of the country. By the afternoon, Maduro arrived at Stewart Air National Guard Base in New York under federal custody.
There were 0 U.S. casualties, but there were Venezuelan casualties. I'm not sure if it's from the actual extraction itself or if it's from the bombs. My guess is that a lot of it is from the bombs. And the death toll now that I've heard is 80. I could be wrong, but when I checked it, it was 40. Welcome back. So before I start again, thank you for those who have subscribed to Bad and Bitchy. If you're here, I know you have. So a big shout out to you. Now, I want to get into like a key component of this whole story here. Basically, let's go through the Monroe Doctrine and see what that's all about, because that is the underpinning for a lot of what's going on in the bigger picture. All right, so the Monroe Doctrine of 1823 basically asserted U.S. dominance in the Western Hemisphere. In 1904, you had the Roosevelt what is this? The Roosevelt Corollary. And we're talking Teddy, not Franklin. Teddy was a motherfucker. Franklin, New Deal. Okay. So it expanded to the U.S. as an international police power. And basically, the U.S. would intervene to keep Latin America solvent financially, of course, and it is called gunboat diplomacy. So all of the anti-communist violence that happened in South America since basically, or Latin America, sorry, since basically 1823 is due to this. Now, Trump expanded this to include preventing drugs entering the U.S. and narco-terrorists. So basically, under this doctrine, he has expanded it. This is in the national security strategy of the US. If you're interested in this stuff, I suggest you read it. It's quite eye-opening. So basically, Trump is the new Teddy Roosevelt, but worse, maybe. Now, in this vein, I'm going to put up a list of US regime change. And I don't know if there's ever a president in US history since about the 1840s or something that has not bombed or destabilized a country. In the 1960s, as I said, I'm Guyanese. In the 1960s, the CIA funded labor strikes and funded a whole bunch of civil unrest in order to take out Chetty Jagan, who was the president, excuse me. And basically he was a socialist. So they got him thrown out of power. It's like there's no place US violent imperialism has not touched. So here's where things get really weird, because this is where my questions mostly lie. I mean, let me show you the tape.
Good night. Good night. Happy New Year.
Well, I didn't know the DEA was in the habit of serving tea and crumpets. What's with all that chit-chat? That banter? Huh? What are we doing here? What are we doing here? And who gave that man a toque? Was it in the Lost and Found? Like, did they bring him a wardrobe change? Speaking of wardrobe changes, don't think that that's the only thing I have, because this man has his own fall-winter 2026 capsule collection. I don't know, the wardrobe changes, and let me just show you. You know what the most insane thing is, you guys? There's already merch. Like, capitalism ain't never beaten those charges. So basically, the Venezuelans who are expats or exiled, they're basically saying they're cheering, they're dancing in the street, da 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 da, very happy. And this is not to deny that for them. I'm not trying to do that. I'm just telling you. Also, I find it interesting that I haven't seen in mass media in Canada or America Venezuelans on the ground as much. So I went digging around, because that's what your girl does. And I found some footage from DW, which is a German broadcaster.
Sentirse asustado como todo amaneció el venezolano como tal el día de hoy y en la madrugada, que muchos familias no pudieron dormir como tal. La experiencia, yo que he estado en la calle, me vengo regresando de Maracay hasta la capital, todo ha estado trancado, todo ha estado muy mal.
Ellos son los que imponen la ley, pues. Son los policías del mundo. Policías asesinos, porque son asesinos. Eso no son personas normales.
Debería haber un buen cambio hacia todos los venezolanos, porque ya son 28 años de gobierno, ya es un momento de transición aquí en este país. Ahora verán, bueno, a esperar que esta gente se pronuncie a ver lo que van a decir. Pero ya me imagino que bueno, ya esto debería de pasar todo ya de una vez, salir de esta situación.
Si se lo llevaron, opino que no debería haber sido así, pues. ¿verdad? Porque, como se dice, va a crear un conflicto más, peor, pues, peor que lo que está ahorita. Y más que con ese bombardeo y eso, bueno, hay que salir como dijeron, que salieran todos a la calle, ¿ve? A defender a la patria, a defenderlos a todos.
All right, and there you have it. A large part of Venezuelans, as you could tell from the video, are wary about US imperialism, and they should be because they've had a lot of experience with it. But they also are correct with their wariness because have you seen what Trump's plan is for governing Venezuela? Let me give you a cut.
We're going to run the country until such time as we can do a safe, proper, and judicious transition. So we don't want to be involved with having somebody else get in, and we have the same situation that we had for the last long period of years. So we are going to run the country until such time as we can do a safe, proper, and judicious transition. And it has to be judicious because that's what we're all about.
So I'm just going to do a time check right now. I'm 11 minutes into the video and I haven't even talked about Canada yet. But I am going to talk about Canada right now. And I don't think I have any videos, so it's just going to be me yapping. So what does this have to do with Canada? So let's talk about oil, shall we? Now, a lot of most of Canada's economy is based on oil, mining, timber, all of those kind of primary goods. We don't have the refining capacity for that oil in this country. So our oil is shipped from Alberta to Houston. Now, I find it interesting that Mark Carney's whole reason for being, his whole raison d'etre, his whole vision for Canada lies in making Canada an energy superpower. He said that many times, which includes all of those minerals, well, except for timber, a lot of fossil fuels, basically. Now, the thing about it is that, let me give you some stats. The U.S. also produces oil from shale. I think that's natural gas. Anyway, but that may have peaked. So their strategic reserves probably have peaked because of that. Or if not, they're very close to peaking. Anyway, Canada exports 4.2 million barrels a day to the U.S. Less than 1 million in Venezuela. So less than 1 million Venezuelan. Now, the U.S. has an embargo on Venezuelan oil, which they're going to take off quite soon. So even with that embargo, Venezuela pumped out about fewer than 1 million barrels, somewhere around there, 800,000 to 1 million barrels per day. And the interesting thing, I think, is that Venezuelan oil and Albertan oil is very much the same makeup, the same kind of viscosity, the same kind of heavy crude, basically, that has to be refined. And those refining centers, like I said, are in Houston. Now, obviously, Venezuela is going to ramp up production, and I know people say that it's going to take years for them to replace Alberta oil, but they don't have to replace all of Alberta oil because they're competing with Alberta oil on a one-to-one basis. In other words, one Venezuelan barrel can supplant one Canadian barrel. So either way, in the future, in the near future, we can begin to see a lower demand from the US for Canadian oil or for Albertan oil. Now, this has all sorts of ramifications, as I'm sure your minds are going right now. But with fewer barrels sold, Alberta could topple, to be honest, because it's also expensive to dig out of the ground. So even with that expense in Venezuela, and the fact is you have businesses backing and investing in the infrastructure in Venezuela and not so much in Canada. And so, Venezuela has so many advantages. Let me just say that Houston is very close. Let's just say it's closer from Houston to Caracas than it is from Fort McMurray to Houston. So, and they don't need a pipeline. So, as I said before, so I think that it's going to be very advantageous for Venezuela to possibly, like I said, supplant Canadian oil. So what does that mean? It means that pipeline politics may be over. The separatists are probably not going to separate anymore. And Danielle Smith might have lost a lot of her leverage. But this also means that Mark Carney is barking up the wrong tree, because this energy superpower just does not seem like it's going to happen. And, instead of investing in green energy, like a lot of people wanted Carney to do, he is doubling down on fossil fuels. But it doesn't look good. It doesn't look like it's going to take off. So one might say, why don't we invest in green energy? Well, because China and probably the Europeans have us beat on that. They're so far ahead, and we don't even have the infrastructure for green energy. So seeing as that we're behind on green energy and being replaced on fossil fuels, I'm not sure what's going to happen. And I think that's one of the questions that reporters need to ask Mark Carney. It's very important. Let me also say that Venezuela also has bauxite, natural gas, nickel, and other minerals. I've heard gold too. So that would definitely even lessen the demand or reduce the demand for Canadian mining products. Now, I've seen a lot of Canadians online being very concerned about this and very scared, and we should be. But I don't think the US is going to take us over militarily. Oh no, really what they're doing right now is they're going to starve us out, which means they're going to slow our economy down to the point where we would be more pliable to certain deals. So Canada, as a major energy supplier, just went up in smoke, pun intended. That's what I'm really concerned about. There are other things that Trump is doing that I am also concerned about, having to do with the Arctic, but I will do that in a different video because I actually wrote about that already. But for now, things are looking pretty tenuous for us, and we have to figure out what other course of action we can take really quickly. And this is going to be a big test of Carney's prime ministerial experience, I suppose. And before anybody says anything, because I know people like to go out of scope when, I'm talking about these things, I am not saying anything about Pierre Poilievre. I'm not saying he would be better. I'm not saying we should have put him in charge. No, that's not what I'm saying. I mean, the man, A, is a red pillar, and B, he is so unserious. And I think I named him the most unserious politician in the country. Now, of course, there's going to be a leadership review, so I will be on that, and we will see what happens. Anyway, this is now a very long video, and I hope you stayed with me until the end of it. And if you did, shout out to you. And let me know what kind of things you want to see, what kind of things you want me to talk about. Right now, I'm trying to, you know what? Let me just say bye. Bye. Elbows up.